Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another League of Legends guide video. And in today's guide, we're going to be looking over Kennan. So the main things that we'll be highlighting over in this guide, we'll be looking over at his abilities, his builds, the pros and cons, the runes, and what kind of combos that you can do with Kennan. And I'll be going through that in detail, showing you what the best way of playing Kennan is and what different ways you can play Kennan and utilize him in a way. So far, I think Kennan's underrated, and I think he needs more appreciation at how he's played, because a lot of people expect a lot of damage from him early game or stuff like that, but he's more of a, mid-late game champion. Like, you gotta give this champion more appreciation. You gotta kind of play these champions but there's also many different ways to play this champion, which is why I'm making this guide. So anyways, let's just stop babbling and let's get straight into Kennan's abilities. And I'll be reading the abilities how they are written as on League of Legends, only to show I'm doing an analysis on the base information that League of Legends has already provided us. So firstly, we'll start off with Kennan's passive, which is Mark of the Storm. Enemies hit by Kennan's abilities receive a Mark of the Storm for 6 seconds, stacking up to 3 times, and at 3 stacks, the marks consume themselves to stun the target for 1.25 seconds, and restores 25 energy. If the stun is applied more than once within 6 seconds, its duration is reduced to 0.5 seconds, and that'll make more sense once we go into further abilities. So next we'll go on to Kennan's Q, which is Thundering Shuriken. Kennan throws a charged shuriken in a line in front of him, dealing magic damage to the first enemy hit. Now, the one thing to be aware about Kennan's abilities is, though this ability is simple, all of his abilities are going to add to his passive. Anything you damage with the enemies with on Kennan's abilities is going to apply a stack to them. Then we'll look at Kennan's W, which is Electrical Surge. Kennan deals bonus magic damage and applies a Mark of the Storm once every 5 basic attacks. Now, this is the passive for the ability. And then the active for the ability is Kennan sends out a surge of electricity to all nearby enemies afflicted by Mark of the Storm or caught in Slicing Maelstrom, dealing magic damage. So this is basically a point and click ability that's used for anyone that already has marks on them. Then we'll move on to Kennan's E, which is Lightning Rush, which is pretty much Kennan's signature ability. Kennan transforms into a ball of electricity, disarming himself but becoming ghosted and gaining 100% bonus movement speed for 2 seconds, while also getting bonus armor and magic resistance while active. Kennan deals magic damage to all enemies he passes through, which is halved against non-champions, and restores 40% energy the first time the Lightning Rush damages an enemy. Kennan gains bonus attack speed for 4 seconds upon exiting Lightning Rush, and Kennan can reactivate Lightning Rush to prematurely cancel it, allowing him to use the basic attacks again. This is why it's good for the attack speed burst that you get for when you're exiting the E ability. Then we'll look at Kennan's ultimate, which is Slicing Maelstrom. Kennan summons a magical storm around himself for 3 seconds, dealing magic damage to all enemies within the range every 0.5 seconds. Each Maelstrom hit applies a Mark of the Storm, up to maximum of 3, which is going to apply the stun at the end of it. Slicing Maelstrom deals 10% increased damage with each successive strike against a target, up to the maximum of 150% damage with 1 strike. And this is going to be the ability that you're going to be using in team fights, and you'll understand why Kennan is such a good team fighting champion. Now, the one thing that to keep in mind about all of Kennan's abilities is, of course, they're going to be applying the stacks and they make up for his passive. His Q ability is going to be used because it's very far ranged and it's probably going to be the last resort that you use when you're doing your trades. Your W ability is so easy to proc, all you have to do is walk up in range to your enemies and press W as long as they have the mark applied from previously. And then your E ability is used for engaging, disengaging, and kiting. This ability shouldn't always be used. Like, it shouldn't always be used to like engage onto your enemy unless you know you can do a really nice all-in, winning the trade and making sure that it was safe to do so. But I think saving it is really good only because it's really good for avoiding jungle ganks along with kiting as well, because the amount of attack speed burst that you get from the E ability is freaking amazing, and you don't always have to use your E and W to clear waves. Your E ability can be used to run into all of the minions and put a stack on them, and then your W can actually clear all of the minions, or it can do a heck ton of damage more to them, but this shouldn't always be used. You want to try using your enemy to push up to you so you can deny the minions, and so you can freeze your wave and get opportunities for your jungler as well. And then your ultimate ability is going to be the biggest ability that you use for team fights. You're always going to use this for team fights or for when you need to all-in your enemy laner and it's going to assure you a kill. Your ultimate ability is probably the best thing that you're going to revolve around throughout this entire game, which is why it's really important to keep it whenever you need it, and it's mostly used to help your teammates rather than yourself. Now, when it it comes to ability maxing, there are many different opinions to this, but when it comes to me, I always max my E ability first, and then my W, then Q, and then max your ultimate whenever it's up. The reason I max E is because of the amount of attack speed burst you get, along with the bonus armor and magic resist you get. When you're maxing this ability, you're increasing that amount, and your E is going to be occasionally up. This ability is going to be your main ability, excluding your ultimate, because it helps you with your engages, your kiting, and disengaging. And then I go W second because it's very easy to proc, and it does a heck ton of damage. And then I go Q last on the maxing, whereas some people max Q, W, then E. I do it the other way around. I go E, W, and Q. It's entirely up to you though. It depends on what kind of matchup you're in. If you can easily poke your enemy without having to use your E, or if they don't have a very dominant jungler, then you can max Q, W, then E. But in my case, in most of my matchups, I will always max E, W, and Q. If I feel I don't need my E ability, I will usually max W or Q. But it's mostly the case that I will be maxing my E like all of the time. So just keep that in mind. And of course, you put points in your ultimate whenever you get it. Now let's look at Kennen's runes. Now I've got 4 different rune pages to show you that's going to not only show you my preference, but a lot of other people's preferences, because I've done a bunch of research and I saw like other Kennen builds or runes that you can apply to him, and it's actually pretty fun to do, and it's actually providing a different playstyle for Kennen whenever you're playing him. But firstly, the most common Kennen rune page is going to be this one, which has Kleptomancy, Magical Footwear, Minion Dematerializer, and Cosmic Insight, Taste of Blood, and Ultimate Hunter, having 2 Adaptive Force runes and having 1 health rune. Now Kleptomancy is so easy to proc on Kennen, only because of his E ability. After he exits E, he can always auto attack twice on the enemy, only because he gets a huge attack speed burst, and it helps him proc both of the Kleptomancies. And then you can go Magical Footwear so you can get the boots later, along with getting them sooner as long as you get kills. Minion Dematerializer will help with farming with Kennen, because it is not easy to farm with Kennen. It's actually very difficult, and I think it takes a bit of practice to farm with Kennen, just like by raw auto attacking. And then Cosmic Insight is mainly to have overall CDR, mainly the summoner spells, because these are going to be very useful for when it comes to teleporting to your bot lane or into team fights, or for split pushing if necessary. And then for secondary, you go Taste of Blood and Ultimate Hunter. Kennen doesn't have a lot of sustain, so Taste of Blood makes sense to go that. And Ultimate Hunter allows Kennen's ultimate to be up quicker. And because Kennen's mostly going to be in team fights, his Ultimate Hunter stacks are going to be full very fast. And the reason I go 2 Adaptive Force runes is because that early damage is really good, and I don't think you should go the attack speed rune, only because his E already applies the attack speed that you need. And then you can always go health, armor, or magic resist on the last rune. Now my personal favorite, and the one I always use, is going to be this page, which has Kleptomancy, Perfect Timing, Futures Market, and Cosmic Insight with Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter. Now we already explained what Kleptomancy is good for. Perfect Timing is actually more expensive than Magical Footwear, which is why I went this rune, so I can get it quicker, and it really helps for divers. So it's very gold efficient, and I think boots are very easy to get, along with having Futures Market, because you get your Hextech Revolver very fast, because that's going to be the item that you're going to build. And then having to go the combo of Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter provides for a lot of sustain. I think this is going to be one of the best Kennen pages, and I think you guys should definitely try this one. Now here's another Kennen page that shows a lot for movement speed. You can go Phase Rush, Nimbus Cloak, Celerity, and Gathering Storm, ending off with Taste of Blood and Ultimate Hunter. Now Phase Rush is going to give you the movement speed buff when you're attacking enemies 3 times. Your Nimbus Cloak is the reason that you're going to be moving faster when you ulti, and Celerity is going to give you 10% more movement speed. So if you activate your ultimate, and if you run into the enemy team with Phase Rush, Nimbus Cloak, and Celerity all at once, you will move so fast, and you will capture everybody in your ultimate, leaving them stunned. And it helps you catch up to everyone and make sure you finish off the kill. And Gathering Storm is to help you scale with late game. And then if you want to go for more of a poke option, you can always go Summon Airy and Scorch. Summon Airy is going to be like up all the time, so you can use that to poke your enemy, and Scorch is going to be burning them for extra damage. And then we stick with the Nimbus Cloak and Celerity. But in this case, I think more on the Phase Rush. So now that we've done with Kennen's runes, we're going to be looking over at his builds. Now when it comes to starter items, you always want to go Doran's Blade and go a Healing Pot. Now the reason you do that is because you get a lot of auto attack damage on the enemy, along with getting lifesteal from the Doran's Blade itself. And going Dark Seal or Doran's Ring doesn't really matter, only because Kennen does have energy, and it's going to be like a waste of the stats. But to be fair, I think Doran's Blade is still the better option, regardless of even having to go the other 2 items. And then when it comes to your core starter, you want to go Hextech Revolver as soon as you can, because you want to build into a Hextech Proto Belt as soon as you can. And then when it comes to boots, you want to get Sorcerer's Shoes. You'll soon have your stopwatch either from your rune or from when you're buying, so you can get yourself a Zonia's along with the Fiendish Codex. And you want to get your Kindle Gem, of course, to build into your Proto Belt. Your Proto Belt is going to be your first and main core item, only because it gives you that nice nice little push for when you need to keep people in your ultimate or when you want to capture people. And when it comes to the boots, you want to go the boots that's going to prioritize around the game. And then Zhonya's Hourglass is going to be your second core item, only because it can be activated while your ultimate is active as well, so it can still damage them while you're protected by the Zhonya's Hourglass, so nobody can target you. Morellonomicon is a super good item, especially against matchups like Nasus to prevent any of the lifesteal, especially like Vladimir or anyone like that, because this item afflicts grievous wounds and it has some magic penetration as well. You want to go for as much damage as you can. Rabadon's Death Cap should be an item that you build either 4th or 5th. It's a really good item, of course, because it does a heck ton of damage, and with Kennan, you want to have as much damage as you can early on in the game. Banshee's Veil is good for a top lane matchup for when you need more magic resist, and the item has a heck ton of AP as well, so why not? Void Staff is probably one of Kennan's best items too, only because of the amount of penetration is provided, along with going with Sorcerer's Shoes, so you have a lot of magic penetration and AP to make up for how much damage you do and to shred tanks. I think Rylet's Crystal Scepter is a decent item, only because the amount of slow it provides to the enemies, especially when you're using your ultimate. So not only does it stun them, but it also slows them while you're using the first parts of your ultimate before it actually stuns. Liandry's Torment is probably going to be Kennan's third core item, only because it works so well with your ultimate and it provides a lot of burn. Spellbinder is probably a really good item too, only because of the movement speed active that you get, along with giving you a heck ton of AP when you're engaging, especially at full stacks. Nash's Tooth can be somewhat of an option. I don't think it's maybe the best item, but I think it's an item that still could work on Kennan, along with Luden's Echo. These two items are not the best items on Kennan, but I think they can still be put to use in a certain way. The only reason I say that is because I've put these items to use and it's been useful in different ways. But they're very situational items. I wouldn't say these are like the best top tip items, but they could be used in a way you can make them viable. So if you need to expand out for builds, go ahead for it. But for now, stick with the items that I've given you, because these are going to be the items that are going to be really useful for when you're playing Kennan. And then whenever you're at full build, you always get the Elixir of Sorcery. Occasionally buy control wards. Don't always use so much gold on control wards as well, because you're going to be needing a lot of gold for your items. Unless you got futures market, then it's a fair enough deal to go for control wards. And then you can go Oracle in case they have a Teemo or you want to deny vision, and then you can go blue wards for later game if nobody else on your team has, so you can provide more vision. And then here's an example build. You got Protobelt, Liandry's Torment, Zhonya's Hourglass, Rabadon's, Morello's, and Sorcery's Shoes. This is the generic build that you would see on a Kennan, and you would mostly see this build for when they have a lot of tanks or a lot of squishies. And then when it comes to summoner spells, the most common summoner spell you want to go for is Flash and Teleport, so you can have control over the game, whereas Flash and Ignite could be an option if you're going Kennan mid lane, since he can be played on top, mid, and ADC, but I think his strongest point is going to be top lane. But I strongly advise going Flash and Teleport, because with Teleport, you gotta look to roam on bot lane using your TP. Because with Kennan's full combo, nobody can escape his stuns, which is like really hard to counter. I don't think it has any counterplay. So whenever you can, inform your bot lane to get some wards down in the bush or something, so you got TP opportunities, so you can jump in, stun them, and get free kills. Now I'll give you a quick overview about Kennan's early, mid, and late game. Kennan's going to be a more mid and late game champion. His early game is to lane bully and poke like crazy. This is going to be really good against matchups that are melee or ones that really can't cope with ranged champions like Kennan. When it comes to the mid game, Kennan should look to roam or get priority with TP on the bot lane, because you want to roam as much as you can with Kennan as long as you don't miss XP or farm. You can always use your E ability to run down to mid lane, but when it comes to bot lane, you got to keep your TP for that. When it comes to running back to lane, you don't always have to use your TP. I think you should use your E ability to come back to lane as long as you pushed out your wave and to make sure you don't miss any minions, so when you come back next time, you wouldn't have to use TP, because your E ability is going to be up like nearly all the time, only because your abilities only require energy, and your energy replenishes like really fast, and your E ability just gives you like 100% bonus movement speed. So this is why you should care more about your TP and use that for ganks and team fights rather than using it to get back to lane. And then when it comes to late game, you want to look more about using your ultimate ability to prioritize around kills. Now this is going to happen in mid game as well, but late game, you're not going to be super strong unless you're far ahead of the game. You're going to be your main engage for your team. This is where you're going to jump in and pop your Zhonyas and do everything, and to make sure that nobody's going to be able to kill you as long as you jump in and stun everybody. And once you do that, your whole entire team has the priority to jump on the enemy team and kill every single one of them, because they won't have enough time to think or react as long as they all don't flash. And even if they do, you've burned all their flashes. But the only thing about Kennan is you need to make sure you get people killed with his ultimate, or else it's going to be a problem, because after Kennan uses his ultimate and is all in and the enemy's still alive, alive, there's still a chance for them to snowball you and out damage you and probably kill you. So that's why you gotta be very careful when it comes to engages. So you wanna make sure that you definitely kill the enemies you look for. Try your best to catch out any of the enemies that are out of position. Otherwise, you could just jump straight in and get a massive ultimate to help for your entire team. Now when it comes to counters and matchups, I think Kennan does not do well against champions that have hard burst like Diana and Akali, considering they insta burst you and they jump into you along with CCing you. Well, Diana does that more likely, and Akali can get a bunch of damage off on you, and she sticks onto champions very well. This also applies with Rengar. Champions that stick onto enemies really well is a real big danger to Kennan. Champions like Yorick are also very strong against Kennan, only because Yorick has so much sustain and so much tankiness, and when Kennan is trapped inside Yorick's W, Kennan has to auto attack and use his E to either escape or break that circle, and it does take a while, and then while you're stuck in the circle, while you're trying to break free, you've already lost a bunch of health because he's going to outtrade you. Ryze is also a difficult matchup, along with champions like Vladimir and Cassiopeia, but these are mostly mid lane matchups, so this is why it's going to be dangerous going on mid lane. But Kennan is also strong against most of these champions that are meta right now, or you know, the broken champions as people say, like, you know, Riven, Yasuo, Zed, all these people. I think Kennan does really well against all of these champions, along with Olaf, Renekton, Sage, Trundle, Darius, yes, even Darius. Sometimes Nasus and Volibear as well, but with Nasus it's more about looking at denying him stacks. This is one thing that you gotta do with Kennan. You gotta look to deny your enemy from getting any minions in general. Like, it doesn't matter who they are or what champion they are, you have to try your best to deny the minions along with you having to farm the minions, because Kennan's not going to be super dominant when it comes to early game. He's only going to be super dominant early game to melee matchups that are not good at sticking on enemies. But there are many more matchups to look at, and if you want to ask for any other counters or anything, you can go ahead and put that in the comment section below, and I will let you know about that. So now I'm going to go over to the practice tool and show you stuff about Kennan, because usually when it comes to combos and everything, I can explain it only using icons and combo demonstrations, but I'm going to talk you through it because there are a few things that needs to be talked about when it comes to Kennan. Alright, so here we are now in the practice tool showing you how Kennan's combos are going to work. So of course, we've already gone through how the passive works, so any ability that you land, it's going to put a single mark on them. And of course, that works with every single ability. So like, that's the second mark, third mark, and they get the stun. So like, yeah, there you go. That was pretty much what I explained to you already, and I'm going to show you most of the basic combos that you could do. So mostly you could either rush in with your E, Q, and then W to get the stun off, or you could look to prioritize around your W passive, which is every 5 auto attacks you get your stun up, or not your stun, you get your electrical surge up, which is right over here. So what happens is, if your next auto attack, when you're glowing, it will put a stack on them. Q, W, you're gonna stun them. So every time you do the 5 auto attacks, now this is why you use your E ability. When you use your E ability, you're gonna get a burst of attack speed, like I told you. So you're gonna get a bunch of attack speed, so you can prioritize around getting your passive up. Look, I got it really fast, and then what you can do is you can use auto attack, E, and then QW, because remember, you can use your abilities while you're in your E form. While you're in your E form, you cannot use auto attacks, but you can still use your Q and W. Now, when it comes to wave clear for Kennan, you can always use your E to go through all of the minions, and then use your W straight after, so you can clear the minions. Now, this is not always the best option to do. This is only the best option for when it comes to enemies that either roam out of lane or need to be pushed in with their minions, so they are denied minions. So let's say the enemy just beat or backed, you could just E the minions and then W them and get rid of every single one of them. Now, this is going to be used for clearing minions really fast, and that's just like the most basic thing to do on Kennan. Now, I'm going to show you most of his engage strategies. So like, mostly what you would do is you would like zap through your targets, you would Q someone and then W, but of course you're going to hit all the targets you E through or you already have pre-existing marks on. So what you want to do is, when you have your ultimate, is when you're zooming in, of course your ultimate, when you cast it, of course, I'm going to show you, like, it just stuns them. And when the enemies are stunned, let's say we stun this guy now, and if we start putting on more marks on him like this, I'll have to do this actually with cooldowns, because your R ability is going to keep reprocking these stacks. So let's say I proc these stacks like this. Now, if I do the same exact thing, if I do the same exact thing again, the stun's going to apply, but it's going to be slightly shorter. It's going to be 0.5 seconds, only because applying the stack multiple times is already OP. So this is why when you go into the enemy, what you're going to do is, or when you're engaging on a full team, you want to use your E, because you can use your ultimate while your E is active. So you can use like this. You can move around with your ultimate with your E, which is why you're going to use this for your engage. But of course, you're not only going to do that alone. You can use your flash. So before you flash though, what you want to do is, a lot of people are going to cast their ultimate after they jump into the team fight. Now, if you jump into the team fight and then press R, there's a chance that they're gonna press flash first. Now, if you precast the R and then jump into the enemy and quickly press W, the strategy is you jump into the enemy team, press R, and then press W. The reason you do that is because every single tick that your ultimate does applies a stack. If you press R, W, and then your R ticks again, they're going to be insta-stunned. So what you want to do is, when you're going in, you want to press R first, then flash. You'd rather miss one tick, go in, so like you don't risk them flashing, so you can actually get them first. So you activate your ulti first, then jump in, and then you press E or whatever, because look, it procs really, really fast if you press R first, then jump in, because they're not going to have time to react on jumping out. And then your protobelt is going to be your other way of engaging in. Of course, it's going to be right there to jump in on the enemy team. Your flash and your protobelt are going to be your two main things to engage. Now, when it comes to bot lane, let's say you're on top lane and you come TP in and there's a bunch of enemies and they're just about to run out of lane. You can quickly flash RE, W them. They'll be insta-stunned. There is literally no counterplay to that. And I think that's going to be the best combo that you do. And of course, when you're using your ultimate, you can always Zhonya's Hourglass, so all of them are getting stunned and beaten the crap out of while you're using your ultimate, along with being in Zhonya, so nobody can really touch you while you do that. So that's one of the best things about Kennan. So to conclude, you always want to use your R ability on a bunch of the teams, but of course you want to precast it before you actually jump in so you can get the stacks really fast on them. And then your E is going to be used to catch up to them, along with having your W to reapply your marks so you can insta-stun them. And then your Q abilities, it can be used to finish off or to catch up to the enemy or to apply the last stack that you need. And once you've done that, you'll be out trading the enemy and you'll get a lot on them. So that's basically the baseline of Kennan. So now that we looked at combos and the baseline stuff of Kennan, we're going to be talking about his pros and cons before we conclude this video. So when it comes to the pros, Kennan does not use mana. Of course, he has energy, and which means he's going to be having it back really fast, and he can spam his abilities, of course, when used in the right way. He has perfect mobility with his E ability, along with quick engages. He's strong against most matchups in the laning phase, and this is mostly going to be melee matchups like I explained to you before. He has good burst and good CC because of his passive. He's a very safe pick because all of his abilities could be used as a safe distance. And he's a very serious lane bully, especially when you're out-sustaining them and damaging them a heck ton. And he's a super great teamfighting champion because his whole kit prioritizes around his ultimate for when it comes to team fights, and then you can reuse your abilities to restun your enemies and to finish them off. And his E ability is a good escape and engage ability. This is why you keep this ability for when you're going to be looking out for jungle ganks or for when you need to all-in an enemy. And of course, because it works with your ultimate. And then we're going to look at Kennen's cons, which is he's very squishy, and when it comes to late game, it entirely revolves around your ultimate. So you need to have your ultimate up if you want to be useful in the late game. Kennan does not have a lot of sustain, so you're going to have to make up for it for when it comes to the runes. And if you're not ahead, your only way of winning a game or starting to get ahead is your ultimate ability, because your ultimate is all you can provide for your team when you're behind or when you're not caught up with the game. Kennan is not easy to farm with. Like I already told you, his auto attacks do very little damage, so you're going to need to make up for it either with minion dematerializer or for practicing farming with Kennan. And Kennan has to be quite close to the enemy. He can keep a safe distance, but for when it comes to auto attacking or anything, he needs to be at somewhat of a range. And this can be dangerous for champions that do have all-ins or dashes or even slows, because that's going to make up for preventing his E from working at its fullest, and because he's squishy, it's going to not make it up for him. So that's pretty much everything consisted about Kennan, and that's all I have to say about Kennan for now, unless you guys have any questions to put down in the comment section below. So that was Kennan. That was pretty much everything that I had to go about him. And if you guys want to see more guide videos like this, then go ahead and put it down in the comment section below on what kind of other guides you want to see. And if you have any other questions to ask about Kennan or about any future guides, go ahead and put that in the comment section below. So don't forget to subscribe and like and comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace guys, and see ya.